Obstacles are a natural part of life, but how you deal with them impacts pretty much everything else about both your productivity and how you handle stress. If you're new here, my name is Jarle, and on Early Owl, we learn to navigate the obstacle course called life. There is a great book about this called The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday. That book kind of goes in depth into how obstacles is often a positive thing and they can spur growth. But in this video, I mainly wanted to focus on how you can minimize the setbacks you face when you're dealing with obstacles in life. When you're facing an obstacle, there's basically two ways this can kind of set you back. One is in the outside world, like you lose your job or break a leg or something like that, and it obviously sets you back in some way. But the other is how you perceive the obstacle and react to it. And the most important point I want to make in this video is that often with these types of obstacles, most of the damage is done not in the actual effect of the setbacks, but more in how you react to it. There's a couple of ways you can try to combat this. I think the most important is just to recognize that a lot of the damage is done by how you are affected by it, not by what actually happened. And that basically boils down to taking ownership of your own mental state. Because regardless of what happened, the only thing that is completely within your control is how that thing impacts you. And when I say completely within your control, I realize it's not as easy as flipping a switch or just like deciding not to do something. But it's more just realizing that you can't prevent bad things from happening, but you can improve on how you react to it. And if you're able to solve that part of the equation, like your reaction to it, then that can get you 80% of the way there with dealing with most setbacks in life. The important thing to hone in on is just to realize that, okay, there's happened something negative in the outside world. And from there, you're just trying to damage control how it impacts you. One thing to do if you're feeling a bit unsure about how to approach something would be to try to detach yourself from the issue. This could just be imagining how you would advise someone else on the situation, but you could also get some outside feedback by either asking a friend. One thing I like to do if I'm feeling a bit lost is to ask for feedback online. There's a bunch of different online communities in things like subreddits, where you can ask for advice on pretty much anything from productivity to relationship advice to anything. Another life hack I have for kind of asking for input on some specific obstacle you have online is to reach out directly to someone. Like if you Google a bit around or maybe search in places like Reddit, it's often not that hard to find an expert in whatever field it is you need help with. And what I found is that if you reach out to someone directly, unless they're like a public figure who gets a lot of these requests, or you maybe reach out to someone on a work email, that people are generally very helpful and very generous with their time. Another thing you should do is to reframe whatever you're struggling with as an opportunity for growth. If you're having a really stressful day at work, for example, then that stressful day is going to make you more resilient for stressful days in the future and just stress in general. If every day was just a breeze, then that means you are probably not very resilient. There is this saying about how you are the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with, but I think you could make a similar saying about how you are the sum of the obstacles you've faced. It can also be really helpful to try to get perspective on things. Both from the outside world, you can look at other people and realize there's probably someone who has been worse off and been less equipped to deal with what you're dealing with right now, but they've still managed to get through it just fine. And on the other hand, I think also almost all problems are not as bad as they feel to be in the moment. It's always a good idea to appreciate the ebbs and flow in life, because if things are going well, then at some point, inevitably, something will happen that just distracts you from what you want to be focusing on, or that makes you unable to do what you want to do, or basically anything negative could happen. So you should appreciate the time you have right now when things are going well, but also be prepared for dealing with any future setbacks. And on the other hand, if you're in the middle of a setback and things are not going great, then don't beat yourself up over it. How I kind of think about it, this is like a very simplistic analogy, but let's say you just have like a graph that goes up and down, and that represents the entirety of your being, and up is good and down is bad. then naturally, like both your internal state and what the world throws at you will just go up and down, up and down. And the only thing you can do is just add some amount of gravity pulling you upwards. I guess that's not gravity, but you can just give it some upward momentum. So you might be able to slightly slow down a descent or speed up an ascent, but it's going to go up and down in the moment regardless. And I think it's easy to identify too much with how things are going right now, because if you're down in a slope, then it's easy to feel like this is who you are right now, and then you completely disregard who you were before when you were in a better place. But these things are just going to happen, and you just kind of need to realize that and try to make the best of it and focus on just building upwards momentum. Me personally, I think I'm good at dealing with some types of setbacks, like I handle stress pretty well, or if things don't go the way I had planned or something like that. But where I struggle a little bit, I notice, is especially if I have like physical injuries of some kind, like something is preventing me from working out or something is making it difficult to work because I had some carpal tunnel issues, then even if it's only impairing me like 50%, that makes it really hard to motivate myself to work. And the only thing I found to help is just to realize that if I am in a downward slope like that, then I just need to really lower the barrier for what I would call success instead of just completely giving up. One other important aspect when dealing with obstacles is to be process-oriented over goal-oriented, because most obstacles would impact your goal. And even if they did impact your process, being process-oriented is not about following a specific process, it's just about refining the process. So I made a video about being process-oriented before. I will link that here. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next Wednesday.